Hi, it's Chris Titley here today on the Scoreboard podcast. It's the Tuesday, the 18th of February, and we're joined by Sydney Swan player Hayden McLean. Hayden, thank you so much for being part of this series.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
Hayden, we're sitting here in mid-Feb of 2025. How's your 2025 started?
Yeah, no, it's been interesting year so far for me. I'll come off injury sort of last year with groins and went to Doha back end of last year, but the last January's been good for me, progressing well, and I mean back with the boys training, which is always a positive, and it feels like I'm back in with the team, which is good.
Excellent, mate. And let's go on to 2024, a very good and strong year from you and also the team, but also getting to the last dance, not quite there. Do you want to describe 2024 in a nutshell for you?
Yeah, I had a bit of everything, I think, last year. Started the year, we were playing probably the best footy as a team I think we've ever played. It was exciting, it was fun, crowds were packed, and it was electrifying. And then we had that little, I guess, fatigue patch or whatever you want to call it throughout the middle of the year where, we're losing and not doing what we were probably performing at the start of the year. But then as a team and Hall sort of brought us back in and refreshed us, and we had a really strong back end of the season and obviously through the finals campaign, but the last day just, we fell pretty short.
Paul Roos described playing in an AFL grand final and losing in an AFL grand final as the best and worst day of his life. Is it pretty spot on?
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole anticipation of the week before, the parades and how how rare it is to get to that day. It's such a great feeling, but then obviously, to lose a grand final, you almost feel like you didn't want to be there at the time. You'd rather not actually played, but there's 19 teams there that want to be there and playing on that day.
Yeah, and you've been there twice and obviously hoping to get there many more times ahead. How do you go about approaching the season? You've been in the AFL now for a very long time, and you know that the season is a long season. How do you personally approach it, and also as a team?
Yeah, I think what was it, the 2022 grand final. After that loss, we probably all went our own ways and dealt with it individually. And just sort of figured it out in our own way. It was the first thing that sort of happened to us like that. But I think end of last year, we've really reviewed it hard as a team, really opened up about how we're all feeling, how the coaches were feeling, what we were all thinking individually on the day. And I think that's just really galvanised us together. And it almost feels like we're on this next journey this year together. And we don't want to do that again, obviously. And I feel like we've really matured as a group and took it a step forward from reviewing it together and having that harsh reality, really.
Do you talk about premierships at the start of the year and pre-season, etc., or is it processed week by week and let's get to September or let's get to the top of the table as you did last year early on with some good form?
Yeah, I think it's at the start. It's probably, especially with Dean Cox coming over, it's adapting to his new ways and what his flair he wants on our team. But I think every team would be kidding themselves if they don't put that target at the end of the year, that premiership. That's why I guess we're all here and we're all playing. But you do want to look week to week. But I think how sort of much last year hurt, we want to get back there and prove everyone wrong.
And Hayden, from a point of view of yourself as a player, you get picked and you play for the Swans, and some weeks you might not get picked, you might get dropped. Yeah. What do you think it is that you have as a bit of a superpower, I suppose, to make sure you get picked every week, and not just get picked every week, but perform at your best and continue to improve?
Yeah, I think that probably took early on. I was in and out for a bit there, and trying to figure out where I sort of fit with. Obviously, Buddy was in the forward line. There's limited opportunities and all that, but I think it's just trying to add different strings to your bow. And for me, that's playing in the ruck, chopping out, Grundy this year, and try and help in different ways, and not just be that sort of one position player and push that case every week.
And what do you do from a learning point of view of the game every week or every year, I suppose, to get better and better as a player and also as a leader in the team?
Yeah, well, I think every week we've got a line coach that will sit through our vision, our plays, and adapt and learn from what we did, either good or bad, on the weekend. And obviously working with Coxie as a ruck coach, a lot of the time was really fast tracking me in the ruck part, And then just working with the other forwards each week. We try help each other out. We're all a bit young down there at the moment. Well, not so young, but inexperienced. So we're all helping each other learn, and I think that's what's the fun of it at the moment.
As you're growing up playing footy, were you always a forward, or did you sort of be a bit more mobile around the ruck and or even a defender?
Yeah, I was pretty much ruck actually as a kid. I grew very early. I was a big kid, and just got put in the ruck and run around the ground and just stand there. But then I think when I must have been 14s, I think Dermot Burden was our coach at local, and he sort of just said, okay, it's time for you to learn a different position, not just to be a ruck, because obviously I wasn't growing as much, and I'm not over 200 centimetres to be a ruck, so it was to learn that forward craft, and I think that's what's made me versatile and helped the team a lot.
Do you think AFL is moving towards a bit more flexibility around the positions, broadly speaking?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think how fast the game is now. Players are playing different positions with less rotation, so you got to either rest forward or rest half back. But I think the teams that can use many positions with different plays is an asset.
And then from the tech and the data point of view, from when you first played in the AFL to now playing in your sixth or seventh season coming up, is it? Has that changed a lot in terms of the analytics and what's happening?
Yeah, definitely. I remember at the start it was just the GPSs each weekend we had of how, I guess, running, and then how we're going to have a training throughout that week. But last year we adapted heart rate monitors. Basically, as soon as we get in the club, we put it on. They monitor our heart rate through the meetings to see how recovered we are, and tailor our trainings towards that. So it's really looking at the data now, and also how we feel. But it's a lot more managing and making us the best on the weekend.
Do you get some of that data sometimes and go, oh, actually, oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I think sometimes you can feel like you're a bit cooked or a bit fatigued, and you are fine. It can be that sort of grind throughout the season, but to have those numbers, to know that you are fresh, can sort of turn your head a little bit and make you feel a little bit better.
Hey, I want to touch on your childhood and sport and activity. When was the first pickup of the AFL ball, and what did you think initially as a child?
Yeah, I grew up in Melbourne, so the heart of footy. So my dad and grandpa and uncle all played at the top level. So from when I remembered, I had a footy in my hand, and with an older brother, I was always at his games, kicking the footy around or having fun in the backyard with him. So from as long as I can remember, I've always had a footy in my hand.
Are you pretty competitive with your older brother?
Yeah, vivid memories of when we were kids. We'll go to the park. Dad would basically just kick it up, and we'll just have one-on-ones for an hour or so. And they'd always get very competitive and end up in a fight or an argument or something. So it was always competitive. And he's actually, funny enough, back now. So it sort of worked out for us.
And Hayden, was the dream always to play professional AFL? What was the dream, the young Hayden?
Yeah, no, it was always to play AFL. I think I sort of knew I had a bit of talent early on. I think it was probably under 12 schoolboys is when I realised I probably had the potential making that team, and then made that sort of a commitment to myself that I wanted to get here. And then obviously went a different path of missing a couple drafts, but I always had that self-belief that I would get here.
Yeah, I want to touch on that as sort of a different way to play AFL, and I've heard you in different interviews say that it sort of makes you feel a bit more belonging, I suppose, in the AFL. Do you want to talk about that process of getting to the AFL and that first game?
Yeah, it was a tough journey. I think missing that first draft, there's such a big emphasis on getting drafted when you're 18, and there's a build-up media and all that. This is your year. And then I guess when that didn't happen that night, it was sort of felt like something got pulled out of me. It was devastating for a couple of days, and I had that little thought of, oh, well, that's it. But then Dad and me had a chat. I think it was at a lunch we had, and he's just like, oh, we can either give up this and just play footy local or whatever, or we figure out a way and try and get you there a different way.
I want to touch on the support crew that you've had through that period, and also now, and how important is that. I do follow your Instagram, and there's a lot of mates all the time on your Instagram. Do you want to talk about your support crew and how important they are to you?
Yeah, no, they're massive, especially around that time. I was actually at schoolies on when the rookie draft happened. So I missed the first draft and thought I'll go to schoolies with my mates to be close with them, and that helped. And then missed out on that rookie draft, and basically they just put their arms around me for the week, which was probably the best place I could have been, to be with my best mates away and just forget about it for that week afterwards.
Do you look back on it now and feel it still?
I think you still do, yeah. I think almost thinking back to it, you can still feel that raw emotion of how I felt when you didn't get your name called and everyone was passing in their last picks and there was no hope left, really.
Yeah, I don't remember too much of my schoolies, to be honest. But I'd imagine that you would have had maybe a little bit of drown your sorrows for a little bit.
Yeah, there's probably a night or two there. But I think that was probably the best way, just to forget about it, be my best mates and finishing school and try to celebrate something else.
Yeah, and Hayden, then when you got selected and then sort of putting that uniform on for the first time, playing in your first game, do you want to describe that feeling and I suppose how vivid that memory is?
Yeah, it actually sort of feels like yesterday that I just got up here. I remember I came in, I think I had a little knee injury at the start of the year, so I didn't think that first year I thought would just be a bit of a rehab development year. And then I came back, played I think 2 games in the NEFL or the VFL now. And I think Callum Sinclair and Sam Naismith had both been down with an injury. And sort of looking around at who could ruck, and I wasn't thinking me as a young player, and don't think I was quite ready at the time. But then when Horse said that I was debuting, it was almost like what I'd been through was worth it. I just felt a sense of pride and just wanted to tell my family straight away.
And then getting out in the field, the intensity levels and being, an AFL player for one game, what were you feeling?
Yeah, massive adrenaline, really. I remember my first game was Fremantle, and that was when Aaron Sandilands was playing and Darcy. So I had 2 pretty big rucks to come against. But I remember Josh Kennedy gave my jersey, and from there it's almost a bit of a blur, and it feels like it's in fast motion. It was just so exciting. It was so fun. It was just everything that I did think it was going to be.
And life as an AFL player now, playing 70 odd games, has that feeling stayed around the AFL system? Being a professional athlete, is it everything that you dreamed of, or is it I suppose there's up days and down days?
Yeah, definitely. I love it. I wouldn't switch this for anything. I think that's why I did everything I could to get here. But yeah, everything has its ups and downs. If your team's going well, it's fun and it's exciting, and then when it's not going so well and the media's at the team or individually, it can be a bit of a grind at times. But I think with what's so good about our club is most of us aren't actually from Sydney. So it's a bit of a family connection, and we all look after each other in-house really well.
And just touching on that with the press and the media, there's a lot more eyes on you now that you are an AFL player, an established AFL player for a club that's got a long history and sells out its game. Obviously, you need to keep yourself super fit, but also probably keep yourself mentally fit as well. What do you do from that point of view to make sure you get your head right?
Yeah, that was probably took me 3 or 4 years to get the balance of being a professional footy player, but also having a life. So I started uni, I think it was just pre-COVID, just to do something outside, which was construction management and property. And then I'll change this year, hopefully into commerce by the end of the year. But last 2 years, a lot of us boys have picked up golf. I think pre-COVID, everyone sort of picked up the golf clubs, but I think just having that release on the day off for 4 or 5 hours and not talk footy, just go play a different sport, compete in a different way, is a really good thing that we've got and a really good balance that we have.
Yeah, the 24/7 thinking about footy, is it hard to switch off?
Yeah, I think in season it can be. if you play a game, say the Friday night in Melbourne, then you go see your family for dinner or something, you're still thinking about the game or what you could have done better or what you did do well. It's just trying to get that balance of when you're at the club, you switch on and you're immersed in it. But when you're outside the club, it's almost try to leave your work there and not think about it too much. But it can drift in a lot of the time.
Yeah, I was going to say if you go and have a chicken parmesan at the local pub just to switch off, there'll be someone that will probably recognise you, and therefore the footy is back on again. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, look, I think being in Sydney is probably a bit of a blessing with that. Don't get recognised too much, although the last probably 2-3 years it's really increased, and I think footy in New South Wales is really growing, which is great to experience because I remember I first got here, school clinics and going to local clubs, they had no idea either who we were or what even footy was really. Throwing the ball like an NRL or kicking it like a soccer ball. So I think trying to switch on off here is a bit easier than say if you're in Melbourne or Adelaide or Perth, but the people are friendly up here, and at the end of the day, it is a privilege to be in this position. And I remember as a kid when I saw an AFL player, I used to love it.
Just on touching on the golf, mate, are you any good?
I'm not too bad. We always compare our handicaps, but I think I got down to about a 12, so
yeah, right.
Can roughly hit it. Yeah.
And how does that compare with some of your teammates?
No, there's a lot of boys, and there's a few in single digits. I think Matt Roberts might be off about 3.
Right.
Errol's really good. He's about 4, I think 4.5. So there's a lot of competition within the club.
And your favourite course to play on?
I like playing. Dad's a member at Woodlands in Melbourne, which is a really nice course playing there. But all of us boys are at the coast in Malabar up in Sydney, which is a great course along the coastline.
And have you settled into Sydney well?
Yeah, definitely. I think first few years you sort of get your bearings and learn the place, but I think Sydney's such a beautiful place. As I said before, it's not footy central, and the beaches and the weather. It's a really nice place to live and get away from it all.
And you've got, I think you've kicked 35 goals at the SCG or in and around that about. Do you have a favourite goal or a favourite moment? And every time you kick a goal at a packed out crowd, I suppose the dopamines must be high and the adrenaline must be high.
Yeah, you can definitely get carried away a little bit at the SCG. I think the fans are so massive and exciting there. And I think with the team with Paps and all that celebrate big, they expect it every time. So I think one against Melbourne, I think it was maybe early in the season last year, I was on the pocket and kicked one there, and the crowd was going wild and got sucked in a little bit, but it was a good experience.
And life after footy, we don't want to think about it too much right now, but you did mention about a degree there, what sparked your commerce. What are you interested outside of footy when it comes to studying and or potentially in 15 years' time?
Yeah, so going into commerce, anything to do with sort of businesses. I'm going to hopefully do some work experience this year with a company that sort of gets startup businesses and invests capital for them and grows their business from a small to a large. So I've got a bit of an interest in that at the moment and growing businesses and starting with a little startup and growing a little product.
Yeah, in the sense that you'll be involved in that startup or just investing in it?
Definitely would like to be hands-on with it. I think a bit like footy, you like to start somewhere and see where you can take a project or a company and see it grow as your own.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a few personality traits on the back of that. One is that are you a curious mind? Do you sort of wander around businesses and actually, how do they make money? Yeah,
definitely. I think it was probably post-COVID, podcast became a big thing for me. Diary the CEO, I love listening to him and just seeing how different businesses have grown and what each person's sort of investment routes are, and both personally and as a business. And that's just something that's sort of drawn me in and what can I do now to be helping myself in, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, you sound like a prosperous type of guy. You obviously want people to succeed, etc. Are you overly a confident man?
I'd say in stuff that I believe in and am good at, then definitely, yeah. I think especially with footy, you sort of have to have that confidence in yourself, especially in an industry that can change very quickly.
One of the words which I've used, or athletes have used in previous podcasts, is they have to be a little bit selfish when it comes to sport sometimes. How do you sit with that word?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, it can't be too selfish. It's more, you can't get sucked in and listen to too many people outside of your network. A lot of people come to you with other ideas or opinions or ways that you should be doing or playing. And sometimes you just need to, be selfish and listen to yourself or that one or two persons that you have in your corner, because you can get wrapped up in it pretty quick.
Do you, people say you back yourself. Do you back yourself? Has that been hard to do sometimes?
I think this definitely fluctuates, but I've always had a real sense of backing myself, and I think probably doing it, getting drafted a different way is really showing that I had to back myself then, and that I do still now, because I know that feeling of not being here or missing out. I really don't want that again. So I know I've got to back myself individually that I can do it.
And you sound like you're resilient. You've got a lot of resilience in you. How do you use that resilience, I suppose, to prosper as a player now?
Yeah, I think the resilience has probably shown me that you can't be complacent. Probably when I was underage 17s, I was going well and doing really well, and I didn't really change much going into my 18th year, which that itself was probably a lesson that you've just got to keep evolving and adapting. The game's growing so quickly, and the new rules and the changes is something you have to either adapt to or you get left behind.
And you've been competitive all your life. Are you ultra competitive? Do you get really competitive on the golf course and maybe in the game of Scrabble as well?
Yeah. Anything I do, I get really competitive. Whether it's card games with housemates or my partner, or it's at golf course, or it's just simply competing with myself and trying to save or invest as much as I can.
And then from a winning point of view, in terms of playing games, do you reckon you've been on the right side of the ledger all your life in terms of win-loss, or about even?
No, I reckon being pretty lucky. I think I'd be positive, I reckon. We had a little down patch probably for 2 years, but every other year we've been in the final. So I reckon, be a positive.
Yeah, being a positive. And as a kid, you always wanted to win in any game. Did you ever compete in individual sports as well?
I did tennis by myself. But other than that, I was pretty much team sports. Now I think about it, I was basketball, did a bit of volleyball as well at school.
I was going to say, with the height, the basketball and volleyball would have helped a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I played that pretty competitive till I was probably about 16. I had a knee injury and had to sort of give up the hard courts, so stuck to footy. But I just love, playing with other players and working together on an objective and getting to that end goal.
Yeah, I want to touch on that, the individual performance of yourself on the AFL field. Plus, there's also the roles that you play within the team. Is there some sort of is it hard to kind of balance sometimes?
Definitely. I think it's, as a forward, it can be hard. If you're not getting a kick or it's not coming down, you sort of have that battle with, do I just try to do something myself or change something? Or it's whether you stick to what the team needs, and majority of the time that actually is the right option. And when you go, in your own silo and don't do it as a team, you actually go backwards, and you can battle that at times. But I think that's why we've been such a successful team, just purely because we all have a default of falling to the team.
Yeah, are you a patient person?
Not too patient, no. I think in most things I do, I want to sort of get it done quick and see a bit of rewards early. But I think football definitely teaches you patience, and each year I probably do get a bit better with it. But I'm still very instant and want to get stuff done.
Do you get nervous?
Sometimes, yeah, but I think each year it's become more of a excitement and sort of that eagerness just to go out and play now. There's obviously some games that you get nervous or in situations you do, but I think compared to my first couple of years to now, it's definitely not as much nerves. It's more just excitement and happy to be out there.
And the game is a long game. Does your brain stay with the game the whole time? Does every now and then it sort of drift off a little bit, or is it hard to make sure you keep continuing in the flow, particularly if the ball's at the other end of the field?
Yeah, I think we've done a bit of work last year with Emma Murray, and it's sort of having that you can only focus on one thing at a time. So, when the goal's been kicked or you've got taken off or you're walking back to the goal square, that's when you can actually just turn your brain off and just walk back to the square, reset. And then once that ball's bounced back up, that's when you sort of snap back in and focus. Because, for 3 hours, you can't be focusing 100% or else you just, fatigue or slip mind.
What do you think about?
For me, it's just walking back to the goal square. I sort of just look down and try to turn my mind off what's happened and look in the crowd and just actually take in what's going on around.
You're not thinking about your golf handicap?
No, unless I played bad that week, maybe. But
or your shopping list, so like, I forgot something at Woolies, I need to order that.
Sometimes things do pop in. I mean, like whether it's uni or something pops in, you can think some random things in a game. But that's when you sort of allow yourself to switch off and while I'm resetting for that 10, 15 seconds, just try to think about something else and then get back to it.
And mate, you're a lover of restaurants and food. You got a favourite dining spot in Sydney and Melbourne?
In Sydney, I'm in Coogee and there's a little Italian spot around the corner called Louis, which is a nice little Italian spot, not too busy as well, which is good.
Good shout out to them. Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of restaurants up here. And then Melbourne, nothing really jumps in. Oh, there's actually, I think it's in Brighton potentially, 10 Greek's Plate. It's a very nice Greek restaurant there, which has always been a birthday special.
And then if you had a destination that you had to go to or to holiday, it sounds like it potentially could be Italy or Greece, but what would be your favourite country that you'd want to travel to or go back to?
Go back to, I love Barcelona and London. Did that a couple of years ago with the boys and that was a great trip. First time in Europe, so seeing the whole culture difference was great. But I think at the end of the year, I'd love to go to Japan, see Tokyo, but then also do the skiing and the snow over there, whether that's end of this year or post footy with the snowing, snowboarding.
Yep.
But Japan would be beautiful.
Yeah, I was quite jealous of all the Instagram posts over December or so with all my
everyone in different
friends
places.
and family in Japan. Certainly a bit of a thriving hotspot. A mate of mine's actually looking at potentially starting a 2020 cricket tournament over there, which might be a business expense for me to go over. And mate, do you watch sport? Do you watch the AFL at all, or you just sort of switched off now? You're a player.
No, I'll watch it pretty heavily. Probably for the first half of the season. It was good to have that Indigenous game in Fremantle played the other night. Just to have footy on again was exciting, and to love watching other teams and sort of seeing where they're at. Especially we're going to verse them soon, so
yep.
I do love watching the AFL. But towards the back end, it can be a bit of a 24/7 thing. So I don't watch it too much just to switch off.
And some advice for kids out there that are playing sport at the moment. Some obviously want to be like yourself and play professional AFL, and some might not have that dream but end up becoming really good, but others just want to play for fun, and there's a lot of parental advice out there as well when it comes to sport. What's some advice from your point of view now, being a professional athlete, playing in the AFL, which is a dream for many kids, to give that some advice to some of these kids?
Yeah, I think probably every year it becomes more of a serious actually industry. You look at probably even 17-year-olds are in the media these days, talking about what they're going to pick and sort of what top 10 pick in 2 years they're going to be. So there's a lot of pressure and highlight and spotlight on them. But I think just what I really used to do is just actually enjoy playing, enjoy the process. Obviously, you have to be serious when you're playing and training. But it's enjoying it, whether it's playing basketball or tennis or just having different outlets as a kid, especially while you can and you've got the time. It's just to enjoy anything you really do enjoy and have interest in.
I'm going to touch on that serious versus fun. Have you always played footy and enjoyed footy, and now you're obviously playing it for a living, which is serious and there's money involved? Can you just sort of describe your sort of relationship between fun and serious?
Yeah, and I think that's where you learn each year that balance of having fun and being serious. But it's actually funny when you do just have fun and playing out with your mates, and that's what we did. Started last year really well. We just went out and had fun, and the footy reflected that. It was exciting, it was rewarding, and if we had a mistake, it wasn't at the end of the world. Where sometimes you can go that serious side and really try hard, and if you make a mistake, you can dwell on it or think about it for a quarter or two, and it can actually affect your performance. So I think it's almost being serious but taking it lighthearted. That it's not the end of the world if you miss a kick or drop a mark, because you got the next context to redeem that.
Yeah, and just touching on the game of footy, the game of AFL for you, what makes it so fun and enjoyable, and I suppose addictive for you as well?
Yeah, I think it's the competing every week. I think going out with 22, 23, with basically your mates every week in that race, I think there's no other feeling that replicates it. That adrenaline, that excitement, but then also the physicality and competitiveness of the game itself. And no matter how good you are, there's always scope to improve, and you sort of get addicted to that, wanting to improve, be better, whether that's individually or as a team. Something that just excites you and keeps drawing you back.
And then when you're on a bit of a roll and you're winning consistently week on week, which you guys were doing last year, how does that, I suppose, affect your learnings, as well as, I suppose, your ability to keep going and keep winning? And then obviously when you lose, you're like, well, that was sort of due.
Yeah. I think the good thing that, Horse, with us as a young team, and we're on those rolls, is very good at still picking out things that we're not doing so well. It's easy to, if you win 4, 5, 6 on a row, to sort of just mask up or, forget those little cracks. But the one thing that he's been very good at is really keeping us in our place, and always giving us honest and positive feedback. And that's probably why we did get on those big streaks. As much as we were winning, we were still fixing a lot of things along the way. And when we did, I guess, lose a couple, the wagon wheels didn't completely fall off, and we got back to our best pretty quick.
Do you have a favourite time to play?
Friday night games or Saturday nights are pretty special. I think the start of the week, that Friday night, you sort of know, first game of the weekend, set the tone for the week as a team, and most spectators are watching. So you sort of just have that feeling of want to go out and compete and win for the weekend.
And when you travel, being so tall, how do you go?
Yeah, not too. We're pretty lucky. We get the exit seats has been one of the taller ones, so we get that. But traveling as a group, it is a fun time, and we love traveling away games just for the enjoyment.
Your favourite ground outside of the SCG?
Or Optus Stadium is pretty good. I like the big ground, and that's where I debuted, so it's got a bit of significance to me. But it's pretty hard to go past the MCG. A nice day game there on the Saturday Arvo or Sunday Arvo is a magical place with the sun coming, setting down, and playing on such a historic ground.
And how do you go with your sleep, mate? You get a good sleeper?
Pretty good. Post games, don't really sleep too much. I'm sort of one of those people that you're so upbeat and so much adrenaline in the game, and then post game, you probably have it for a few hours and probably don't get to sleep till 4 or 5 a.m. That night. So whether you do a good game or a bad game, you're thinking about the game.
I've got a new segment which I've introduced the last couple of episodes called the Scoreboard Moment, and it's the one moment that's defined your career, or the one moment that you remember in your career which basically has shaped the path and direction. I'm interested to know what the Scoreboard moment for Hayden McLean is.
There's probably one that sticks out, actually. I touched on it before, the under-12 schoolboys. I remember I was actually rucking against a fellow player, Ethan Casey, and he was a head above everyone, and I was getting dominated in one of the trial games, the first one in the morning, and you had another game in the afternoon. And my dad in the car park basically just sat me down and said, recruiters and people aren't watching if you're going to beat him. Your expectation is not to beat him, but not to give up and just have a crack, really. Show that competitive and fight that I do have. And I was probably giving up a bit in that first game and probably thought I was meant to win, so I didn't really showcase much. And then that second game, after talking to Dad, he's like, you can either lose again and not impact, or just go out and try physically either, jump into him or bash him or run around the ground and beat him in other areas. And that's probably stuck with me even till now when I'm coming up against, Sean Darcy or players that are bigger than me. Let's try to find different avenues that I can beat them in.
And Hayden, you've a dream come true to play one AFL game. You're in your mid-70s. What defines success for Hayden McLean now, moving forward?
Yeah, it's funny how it sort of changes over the years. You want to get that first game, and then you get that, and then it's your first win, and then finals. And I think for me now, it's continuing to develop, cement that sort of forward position in that forward line. But then having sort of 2 grand finals that haven't gone our way, I think ultimate success at the moment would be, to get the other side of that and win a grand final.
Hayden, thank you so much for being part of the Scoreboard podcast series. Congratulations on your achievements thus far as a Sydney Swan player and the number of games that you've played and the 2 grand finals that you've played as well. And all the best in the 2025 season coming up.
Beautiful. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that.